Welcome to Corporate Cafecito,
a Latin and business podcast where we share insights and strategies to help entrepreneurs and professionals thrive.
Hola, bienvenidos a Corporate Cafecito. Yo soy Carlos Butler Valle.
y yo soy Nayeli Suarez Guest. And one of the things that we talk about here on Corporate Cafecito is very much the corporate side, right? We have our cafecito, but we also want to talk about like what's it like to be in corporate America, what things we should look for, etc. So I'm very happy to have you on. But Carlos, why don't you introduce your friend since you guys are closer?
I am very happy to introduce my friend Mauricio, who is with Conagra. And I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit. But before that, I just want to say this is someone that I've known for many, many years and have had the opportunity to see just the ebbs and flows, I would say, of your career trajectory. And it's amazing. I mean, even as we were talking about this, you had just gotten promoted again, which is fantastic.
Woo!
And so love having you on for so many different reasons. And I'm so glad you're here. So Mauricio, tell our Corporate Cafecito listeners about you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
The
of
intro
course,
there.
Of course.
But yeah, my name is Mauricio Palli. I work for Conagra Brands, which is a major CPG company here within the United States, also in Canada and in Mexico. Currently, I am the manager of inclusion, diversity, and belonging. Recently promoted. I was
Rock and roll.
previous to that, I was a senior learning analyst
Great.
on the talent development team. So.
Kind of walk us through like your career. Okay, so Mauricio's in Logan Square, and then what happens?
Yeah, so Mauricio, we started in Logan
Yeah,
Square.
we're going back.
We're really going back. Logan Square, before it was trendy, grew up there, a lot of Latino families there at the time, and then went to a high school here in Chicago called Schurz.
Oh,
So didn't go to Lane. I had cousins that went to
my
Lane,
God,
so
I didn't know we had Schurz
we
people.
had that rivalry, but family ended up moving out.
Bulldogs, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, look at you.
Remember.
Don't put anything past Nayeli.
But then moved out to the burbs, just for a better opportunity, better schools, and then went to college. Graduated with a degree, a Bachelor's of Science, and my first job out of undergrad, I was an 8th grade science teacher.
What?
Wow,
Yes.
that part I didn't know actually. That's
Yes.
really
Wait,
cool.
so what was your major in college?
My major, I was double major, biology and social studies with a concentration in secondary education.
Wow.
Whoa,
So
nerd
wait, you
alert.
were in 8th grade.
8th grade's environmental science teacher.
Whoa,
Wow,
that's
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
And we met
Maestro.
working
Yes.
in when you went to work for
At the time, Robert Morris College.
Okay.
Then became Robert Morris University. And actually we did work there together in admissions, and then was an academic advisor.
That's right.
So that was my little working in higher education.
That's so
like,
cool.
And so you've worked obviously in K through 12. You've
Mhm.
worked in higher education.
yeah.
You, like me, did a pivot from higher education
Mhm.
into the corporate space, which I remember when I was thinking about making my pivot, a lot of people were like, "You're crazy." They were like, "That's not going to happen. Count your blessings, so on and so forth." But I remember actually I think you left before I did.
I did.
To me, I think that was probably subconsciously a little bit of a push to be able to say, hey, this is a great...
Like it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible, but because you don't really see a lot of those changes.
Correct.
But so you've been in like quick service,
Mhm.
and then, obviously now you've been working in CPG.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about how you have...
Well, before we do that,
Okay, great.
can you finish walking us through your
Oh,
career?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because now I'm like, all right, great.
I'm like,
Going in.
Yeah, Carlos
sorry,
is like, and then you did this,
I
and
know
then you
your
did this.
background,
Yes,
so
we
yeah.
know.
Totally fine,
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Diane.
totally cool. 8th grade science teacher, left there, worked in higher education, admissions, and academic advising. At that time, then decided to go to grad school, went to Roosevelt University. And that's when I had to make a choice. Like, do I want to focus on a master's in education, or do I want to do something within the business realm? And kind of like you, I was like, what do I do? Like, do I want to stay in higher education? And at that time, a lot of things were happening. And I'm like, you know what? Let me look at figuring out going down a route where I'm more versatile, where I'm
Yeah.
able to like use more skills. So I ended up with a master's in training and development, specifically instructional design. And that's when I left secondary education. Working at the university
Mhm.
All right,
to
yeah.
then going into my first corporate job at H&M.
That's right.
Yes.
And
I love
I
H&M.
forgot. I totally
Yeah.
forgot.
Yeah,
H&M
yeah.
was
It's been a minute.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, how was that? Like how? Because I mean, a lot of times. So I wrote a book about teachers who leave the classroom,
Yeah.
and it's called Pencils Down, and that's a very hard first transition.
It is.
So how was that for you?
Honestly, a little scary because it's like I've been working in education and now I'm in corporate,
Mhm.
like the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, what do I do? The one, I guess, easy thing that helped soothe it a little bit was that I was working for a major fashion company where it wasn't like your typical corporate world
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, people could still be themselves. Like you had people with tattoos, crazy hair. We're in fashions, but yes, we're still now, it's business.
Right.
Yeah.
So
right.
it's a different mindset. You have to think differently and all of that. So it took some adjusting. But I met some wonderful people at that organization that helped me just learn a little bit more about how the business was run, learned more about the retail side of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, again, I still to this day talk to some people from H&M.
How did you position yourself, and what was your role?
Exactly. Love that
Yeah,
question.
great question. So when I first started there, I was a team coach. It was just a name that they had for a development manager. And specifically, I was working out of the online North American office. So
I remember
this
that.
was back in 2012 where H&M.com was first starting in the US.
So cool. I love that store. I mean, when it first came out here in the US, I was like, finally, like it's
Yes.
so cool because it's such beautiful clothes and it was so affordable.
Yes. So again, new way of working,
Mhm.
working with that team to build the online side of things. I was there when we launched H&M.com
Nice,
That's right.
nice.
I remember
in
that.
the US. And then just from there, it just continued to grow where team started supporting Canada, started supporting Mexico, and then more growth opportunities helped happen for me at that organization before I decided to leave.
I remember us having like follow-up conversations where you were talking about some of the really cool projects that you were working on, and I definitely was feeling a little bit of jealousy. I think because it was so cool.
Yeah.
Like at that time for you to be in a position where you were helping to. I mean, I remember you telling me that you were literally creating manuals.
Yeah.
For the first time on how folks should be engaging, interacting with, connecting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was right around the time where I kind of remember Amazon sort of being the place that you would order sort of everything from, right?
That is true.
This was right around the time where you would expect Amazon boxes maybe once a week at your house.
Yeah.
Not probably to the we get them quite often still. But I mean, it was so fascinating to me, which was why I love that question, that of how you actually positioned yourself to be in those spots, because some of that experience you were just doing for the very first time.
Correct. Which also made it scary
Yeah.
at the same time.
Oh, 100%.
Because I'm like, do I know what I'm doing? And then there's like some imposter syndrome that comes in.
Yeah.
But then that's when, just having candid conversations with people that have been at that organization for a while, and then leaning into also like the support from my family. They were like, no, like trust your gut. Yes, this is new.
Yes. Sí se
Yes,
puede.
sí se puede. It's scary, but like try.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Because you went from H&M, I think, then you went to Roti?
No,
Was that what it
I
was?
went to Grubhub.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was it. So then you went to tech.
I went to tech. Different
which,
world.
Again, is
Which is selling yourself in a completely different way.
Correct. Yeah.
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 100. I think the one thing that I learned throughout my transition,
Mhm.
and we'll get to the other positions, is you have to find like the skills that are very marketable, that are very transferable.
You talked a little bit about how you're constantly sort of looking at refining, redefining your skills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop you again.
Okay.
Stop. Okay, so you're at Grubhub.
Yeah.
Like, Carlos, let him get us all the way
All right,
to
we're
Conagra.
good.
I just love your story. I love your. That's right. Okay.
But you know the story.
I do. Yes,
Okay.
You're right.
All right. So
So
ready?
you're at Grubhub.
Yes, I'm at Grubhub.
Tell us a little bit about how you maneuvered.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I applied first to Grubhub and they said no, and I'm like, that's cool. That's
Like,
fine.
That's fine.
So then a few months later, same position popped up again. So it was a manager position at their contact center. I was like, you know what? Let's do it again. Tried it. And then
You're like, clearly, whoever you hired last was not the
probably
right
not
fit.
the right fit.
Yeah.
I don't know. So then I landed there and I started working specifically with teams that were handling just like your general orders.
Mhm.
So anytime you had a problem, you would call and I would help manage those teams. And then eventually I moved from managing that team to then managing the escalation department.
Oh,
So now I'm
fun.
managing.
How did you win that
love
prize?
it. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing, I was in a very unique place at the time of the organization because they were like, we were getting so much like calls, and at that time
Mhm.
Grubhub was growing so quickly that they're like, we need a team dedicated just to handle these customer
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
So I was at the right place at the right time,
Yes.
which I was able to transition into that. So I managed. Then that was like, now I'm
You're
managing.
like, I managed an 8th grade science class. I can do this.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
right.
manage regular customer service agents. Now I'm managing supervisors. So now another level, which is a
Yeah.
different game,
It
a
is.
different ball
You're
game.
managing managers. Yeah.
Exactly. So really cool. Learned a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, you know what? I'm still helping. We're still building the team. So writing manuals, making sure that the scripts are all like tidy and ready to go. Are we following policy? Working with like different HR business partners to ensure that things are aligned.
Yeah.
And then training like knocked on my door at that company and said, hey, we want you to come over here.
You're like, okay.
And I'm like, sure, why not? That's like where I really truly love going into. So then I jumped into that and I was a senior partner trainer specifically for accounts within, at the time again, Grubhub was growing. So new acquisitions that we were acquiring, new restaurants, big brands that were just joining the platform. So like working with those teams
Yeah.
to ensure that training and everything was as smooth as possible for launch day.
That just sounds like it could be so, and I say this in the best way possible, but chaotic.
Very chaotic.
You know,
Yes.
because there's something to be said about working with an established brand, and Naila, you have obviously, I think of all of us, the most experience building brands and building companies from the ground up, right? There's a certain level of chaos that goes with that.
Oh, there's so much chaos.
And then there's a whole nother level of kind of comfort that comes from working with organizations that are well established. And so as you're talking about all these things, I can only just imagine how you are growing within your own career amongst or within an environment where there's obviously a lot of chaos.
Yes, and a lot of change.
Yeah.
And things move very fast. If anybody who works in tech or in startups knows that it's like you do one project, you're done, you're on to the next one.
Right.
And then you're going, and sometimes you're managing multiple projects with different stakeholders.
And
all
also
that.
sometimes you're the finance person and the HR and, the trainer and this. Yeah.
Yes.
You know what's funny? I'm just now realizing that at some point our careers kind of converge a little bit because I also start to work in tech.
You did.
I'm at Groupon.
You're at Groupon at the same time that I'm at Grubhub.
Yes, and then
Down the
there's
street.
there's another I think shift after Groupon, or after Grubhub.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you go after Grubhub?
So after Grubhub, that's when I went into fast casual, roti, modern Mediterranean.
And that's where
that's
was
delicious.
at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So-
Down the street
Down the
again,
street,
because we were both in the West Loop. How funny the world, how the worlds keep.
You guys are making me jealous. I want to be a best friend.
But and then that's when I transitioned over to Roti as a senior instructional designer. And at that time, Roti was very paper based. Everything was manuals,
Wow.
and also they were experiencing growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in, and my manager at the time, who was actually continues to be one of my mentors to this day, and one of the best persons I've ever worked under, Lisa Holloway, just awesome. Came in and said, all right, we need to now make this digital. How can we do this?
You're like, lo escaneamos.
So then I'm like, oh, there's more than just scanning. So that's where, again, honing into my instructional design background with grad school and all of that, really then started diving in and building modules. Like now I'm building modules. I'm creating videos. I'm going to restaurants with my iPhone because we were still a little scrappy, using my iPhone to create videos, make voiceovers, do all of that while managing the LMS, managing the training managers out in the field, ensuring that things are being pushed out. So a cool thing that that resistance and learning like quickly came from also working at Grubhub in that chaos.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is nothing going into this.
Yeah.
I love that you just talked about that, because there is one of the things I think that we always try to, explain to our listeners is that, you can, ideally, you're able to build on the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? I know you talk about this a lot with your.
You have to get the breadth. You have to get the breadth. And, one of the things that I think helps is when you're willing to take, because as you're saying, the titles don't necessarily sound like you're going up. And I always say, like, if you get stuck on the title, you're not going to get the experience.
Yeah.
And titles do not equal money, right? You could be moving and getting more money, and like I said, you could call me like a whatever, as long as you pay me.
Yeah.
So you were with Roti, and then is that for you went from there to Conagra?
No, then COVID happened.
Orale.
COVID happened.
Oh, I know. I was going to say. I didn't realize what you were getting yourself into.
Guys, you got
I was going to say, we make a few twists and turns.
COVID happens. And obviously, the restaurant industry took a real big hit.
Yeah.
Was furloughed. And then from there, went to Aon, the insurance company.
Yep.
And I worked there for a year, specifically under like their retiree managing accounts and all of that stuff. Learned, so then I'm like, oh, insurance. Quickly found out it wasn't for me.
That's the best way to find out.
I mean,
quickly.
it's the truth.
By doing and by figuring it out.
Was able to transfer those skills, did it for a year, and then said, you know what, got to do a change, and then went to consulting, West Monroe Partners. Worked there for a year, learned a lot. Working at a consulting firm. It is not for everyone, to be honest.
Yes.
But again, building that resilience, continuing to build my my toolbox of all the different skills, learned a lot there too. And that's when I left from there to Conagra. And I actually took a step back because I was managing. So when I went to Conagra, I took a step back from being a manager of people to an individual contributor. And in all honesty, I did it for two reasons. One was a big mental health. I really needed to chill and focus on that because it was just affecting me a lot at that time. And then also I was like, you know what? I want to continue to do meaningful work.
Yeah.
And I saw what Conagra was doing and building, and I'm like, that is so meaningful what they're doing that's what I want to
be a part of.
And that's when I transitioned into Conagra.
There's one thing Mauricio hasn't mentioned, which is that he has been a runner for a long time. And when I think about what you just shared with us is, because you did a lot long distance running.
Yeah.
When I think about just the metaphor here is, it feels like you have been running a marathon
100.
And you have continued to push and push and push, and it could even feel like a long distance relay where you are, sort of
with all these running terms.
Look at that. You sure you want to run? Gracias. I'm a runner now, but not, but my knees don't love it necessarily, but I still do it. But, but there's a lot, I think there's a big metaphor there to how you have continued to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I love that Nayeli brought up the fact that to the ear, it may not necessarily sound like, I could not discern the difference in those titles, but I could definitely discern the difference in the breadth and the depth of what you were doing. And I just want to say this, I'm very proud of what you've accomplished. And I think the sky is obviously still the limit. But yeah, let's keep running.
Yeah, I know. It does. I'll be honest, it has felt like a marathon, but I would not like trade it for the world, like change anything, because at every organization and every position that I've held, I've always learned something new.
So, if we'll stay on the running analogy.
Yeah.
In order to prepare for long distance runs, you have to create a program. You have to have a coach sometimes. The people handing you water along who were the people who influenced your life? Who were those people who like really told you like, Mauricio, you got to keep running?
Yeah.
You don't have to say me.
Okay.
So we'll go there.
Yeah.
No,
that's
one.
I know you said Lisa Halloway.
Yes.
You'll have to let Lisa know.
Yes, I will definitely. I'll let Lisa know. Lisa, yes, definitely. Especially like after COVID and where we weren't sure like what was going on. I wasn't sure what was going on with my career. Just like leaning in and like having those candid conversations with her, and to this day we still have them. Like even like when I was coming over to Conagra, I was like, Lisa, I need to talk to you. Yeah. I need to pick your brain. Like, that's what's going on? That's really cool. And just, the one thing that I really appreciate about this individual is that she gives it to me straight and is like, you know what? You won't know unless you try.
Yeah.
But you have to believe in yourself.
You have to.
And you have to believe in yourself.
So you talked about having imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And so, first, I'm going to tell you part of that you brought on yourself by going by all these different roles.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of reinvented yourself a million times, going from regular education, elementary education, higher education, then you go into like fashion, then you go into tech, then you go into, and now you're with Conagra. And so I think that part of that is when you said, I kind of felt imposter syndrome. Well, like, duh, that's great that you felt imposter syndrome because you were pushing yourself. Yeah. So how did you get over that to be like, okay, I'm going to try this, and then going into insurance? Like, what was that even?
Like, honestly, like just keeping it real with myself and just having support along the way, which is so big. Whether that's support from like family members, whether that's support from like my husband, like just having that support along the way. And then celebrating the wins. So when the wins happen, like saying, like go back and like reflect on that and say,
Has your culture ever been part of your wins?
Yes, it has.
Tell me more.
I mean, like the one thing about Latinos is like
because we love to celebrate.
We love to celebrate.
Yes.
We are very like hardworking people, and we like échale ganas. Like I remember growing up as a kid, my mom would be like, échale ganas, like amárrate y échale ganas.
Yeah.
So I always had that thing, like even when I had the imposter syndrome, the hard days, I'd be like, no, this is gonna work out in the end, no matter what. Yeah. And so then when we crossed that line and we had that celebration, I'd be like, let's go out and party. Let's go have a margarita. Like, hell yeah. Like, things are great.
And you were the first person that I ever met that was Mexican and Cuban. And I feel like once I learned that about you, I could definitely see the influence of both of those cultures.
Like drinking your cortadito with a concha.
With a concha, like, depending on like how I'm feeling that day,
This is my taco de ropa vieja. Which, by the way, sounds actually really good.
By the way, every time we leave here, I always end up going and getting tacos. So now you've gotten me going. But I love that question because I think it's, it is part of that resilience, too. I think that comes from both of those sort of cultures together. And knowing you personally, I feel like I could see a little bit of that, plus your own individuality, that you've put into all of these things. So keep adding that, because I do think that, and keep telling that story, because I think it's important for people to know. I think especially nowadays where people are covering.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out like what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, what can I show about me, what shouldn't I. One of our episodes we talk about assimilation versus authenticity.
Yep.
And one of the things that I admire about your story is that you have been always unapologetically you.
Thanks, Carlos.
Yeah, and but I say that because I think for our listeners, having that sense of understanding that it's not just Carlos and Nayeli saying you should be authentic. It's the fact that authenticity has helped bring about some of these really cool shifts throughout your career. Is proof, right? The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or La Robaya.
La Robaya.
Okay, so I want to ask you one more question.
Go for it.
As you think about where we are right now, where we read about layoffs all the time in the news, even like today, and we're not going to say the date because you don't know when this is going to air. Yeah. But when you're in that position, you need to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of the skill sets that you probably highlighted the most as you transition from one industry to another?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, I guess, it depends on like the industry that you're in, but if we want to think of like general ones.
Yeah, because you went across industries.
Yeah, I did.
So like what?
So one would be, let's say if you were specifically wanting to go into like management, then you got to think, okay, are you going more into the like, let's say the project management space, or are you going into, let's say, managing teams? Because that's two different ball games.
Right.
But really knowing like how to manage, let's say, people, listening to them, like that's like the biggest skill that I wish more people would practice, is like the art of genuinely listening. Because yes, you're a manager, and yes, you may have an agenda in your head, but try your best to push that aside and listen to your people, because it doesn't matter if you're managing one person or a team of 50. Everybody has different needs. Everybody is different. So you need to know how to adapt, how to lean in and listen, and especially like leaning into the discomfort, because it's going to happen. No matter what.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be a people pleaser all the time. So understanding your people, working with people, that's a big one. Also managing up, which is so important. And again, one of my mentors really taught me that art of managing up. You need to have clear and consistent communication, whoever you may be reporting to. Because again, they may not know like where your stance is on things, so you have to let them know. And then also, be courageous and voice those opinions, because half of the time, they're working on strategy. They're figuring out bigger picture that you may be in the weeds, and you may find out more information about things that ultimately affect that strategy. So managing up and knowing how to manage people.
And when you've done that in so many different types of environments, I feel like you are definitely a good authority on that topic.
On how to do it,
it's I think you're exactly right, and that, by the way, goes along with what we've consistently said, which is great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mauricio, we've really enjoyed having you on. Truly, like I said, it's been such a pleasure to see your growth. I remember when I was telling Nayeli about bringing you on the podcast, and I was just trying to explain a little bit of what it was.
I'm like, and then he did what?
And she was like, what? She was like, he sounds fascinating. And so when Nayeli says that, especially given everyone she knows and everything she knows, you got to jump on it. So,
I was like, what?
But truly, thank you for coming to Corporate Cafecito.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aquí los esperamos la próxima vez. Yo soy Nayeli Suárez Gas.
Y yo soy Carlos Palli. Hasta pronto.